I'm like, what did I just do? Like, his knight was the worst piece on the board on b8 and went to f5, which is absolutely insanity. This is one of the coolest games I've ever played against a 2100. This is round 1 of the Pittsburgh Open, and the ratings that you see, 2100 for my opponent and 1900 for me. This is our USCF national rating. So, and you know, I don't play too many 2100s. Usually I play down, but I'm back in the US, and now I'm back in Pennsylvania playing in the Pittsburgh Open, one of the few major Continental Chess Association tournaments in Pennsylvania. So excited to be back, and I'm playing against a very strong opponent. The time control is 80 minutes per side with a 30-second delay per move, and after the 40th move, we each get an additional 30 minutes. So kind of long for USCF, for US tournaments. And yeah, with that being said, this is a no engine recap until the very end, but also I asked National Master Matthew O'Brien to analyze my games, so I'll be looking over his analysis and sharing some highlights with you at the very end. Okay, with that being said, let's hop right into it and let's get through this. So I play e4, my opponent plays e5, and we both bring our knights out, and I play the Italian. I played a lot, and he plays the 2 knights. I play a very direct and forcing approach. I play d4, and after he takes, I play e5. So it's the Scotch Gambit. It's a temporary sacrifice. I'll win this d4 pawn later, but for the moment, I am down a pawn. He plays d5, very principled approach. You know, I play e5 attacking your knight. You play d5 attacking my bishop, and it's usually bad for white to take the knight on f6, because then black will take on c4, have this big center, usually no bueno. So I play bishop b5, pinning the knight to the king. He breaks the pin with knight d7 and also attacks e5. So I castle, and he plays bishop e7. Continuing development, preparing to castle, but now I take on c6 and take on d4, and I'm threatening c6. And if I take on c6, so if you play c5, I still play knight c6, and I'm going to win his dark squared bishop, and I'm also attacking d5. And also, his queen is trapped. So the issues keep piling up here. You know, his queen's trapped, and I'm going to take the pawn on d5. That's a double whammy. Anyways, so black has to be very careful here. If they take the pawn on e5, defending the pawn on c6, then I could play bishop f4, attacking the knight. And if you defend your knight, I could take and play rook e1, for example, or play knight takes c6 and then take the bishop like that. So black has to be very, very careful here. And my opponent, though, he knows his stuff. He knows this opening. He plays knight b8. Which is a very odd move if you've never seen it before. Because black undevelops their piece, but the idea is that we're simply defending the pawn, and black's position is solid, and more importantly, long term, they can possibly mobilize this pawn mass forward. That is kind of one key idea here. My opponent, I play knight c3, and he castles. After the game, he said he thinks he should have played c5. But I know that this is okay for white, I mean. Because after knight b5 and c6, it may feel like, oh man, the knight has to go back to a3 and that looks bad. But I can play knight d6 check, and after bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, I can go rook e1 check. And after bishop e6, I can go knight d4, attacking the queen. And the pawn is pinned because if the pawn did take, queen takes queen. So, and if the queen goes back to e7, then I go play knight g5. And it gets complicated, but it might be okay for me. For example, if he castles now, actually, maybe instead of knight g5, maybe I can play bishop here. But then f6, it gets complicated. Yeah, so maybe, yeah, bishop g5 doesn't look that good. Maybe knight g5. And if castles, maybe just queen h6 here, and then here, and maybe this isn't good. And knight g5 castles, maybe queen d3 instead. Yeah, maybe queen d3. After g3, Maybe I could take and then play queen bishop here, for example. Yeah, maybe this is okay. Maybe. Anyways, I'm getting super off track. But I know I thought it was supposed to be okay for white, but I don't know the details on specifically how. Anyways, but instead of c5, he does castle, and now I play queen f3. So here I'm still playing instantly. I've seen this position before. It's just been a long time since I've seen it. So I guess you can call it, my prep, but whatever. He plays bishop e6, developing his bishop, but I've seen that move too. I just take the bishop. He's hoping to get counterplay on the f-file, but now I play queen g4, attacking the pawn. And if he plays rook f5, now knight e2 is really annoying for him. If he takes the pawn on e5, then I can play bishop f4, attacking his rook, and if he goes rook here, I can go knight here, and I will still be winning back this e6 pawn, and your rook looks really loose, but maybe it's okay. And maybe instead of bishop f4, I might have other moves, like maybe like knight d4 now, potentially. Oh, but this looks annoying though. Oh yeah, that looks too annoying. Okay, yeah, no. So if rook takes e5, maybe I could do something else. I could also consider bishop f4 and then knight e2, knight g3. That also has potential as well, because the rook is because if the rook moves, then the pawn on e6 will be hanging. So he plays queen d7 though to guard this e6 pawn, and now I play bishop h6, threatening checkmate here, hoping he'll blunder. Just kidding. But I'm developing with tempo, and he plays bishop c5 to defend laterally. So his queen is doing God's work here, defending against checkmate, defending the e6 pawn. Like, his queen is doing so much defense right now, but it is all holding. But I'm still familiar with that move. I play knight a4 next, attacking his bishop here, and after he moves back, I'm not interested in taking the bishop, because then he has this really nice center pawn mass. His rook is on the open file. It's like, it might be okay, but it doesn't look that great. He can still improve his knight with knight a6, knight c5, so this is not what I want. I play c4. Boom! Explosive, because it's c4. And I'm threatening to trap the bishop. Like, you play a lazy move, like rook e8 or something like that, bam, c5, your bishop's trapped. There's absolutely nothing you can do. So after c4, and if you take the pawn, oh man, look how juicy that is. Like, I'm gonna play rook ad1, and after you move, I can move here or something like that, and then take the pawn, and then maybe take this pawn still, or I don't know. I can threaten stuff. Life is looking good. That is the point. Life is looking good for me. This structure is not intimidating me at all. I can just rotate my knight back, potentially. So c4, I'm not afraid if he takes me, and he has to be very precise here. I think I get the move order wrong. I think this notation, so move 16. Yeah, so he plays king h8. Here, I transposed the same thing. I put knight a6 into chess.com, and then a6, and then king h8. But in the actual game, he played king h8 first. Then I played bishop g5, and then he played knight a6, and then a3. So just slight move order change. I messed it up when I inputted this game originally. So, but yeah, just know, same position, just different move order. So after he played king h8, I played bishop g5. I think that might have been a minor mistake, because this pawn on f4 needs to be defended, and I eventually moved my bishop back to f4 anyways. So I feel like I made a mistake. One thing that I also could have maybe considered more, that I'm just now thinking of, is that maybe I could have bishop e3. I originally dismissed it because bishop takes, I have these double isolated pawns, but actually his knight is still stuck on the edge of the board here, so maybe it's actually not that bad. Looking at it now, like, my pawns are isolated and double, but maybe it's actually not that bad. Like, in the game, my bishop became so bad. My bishop was so bad throughout this game. So, you know, maybe I should have really considered bishop e3 more so than I actually did in the game, despite it being ugly. One thing that I would have to consider is what happens if d4. But it looks like I can probably just take the pawn and then take this pawn. That's probably what I can do. And I'm up a pawn, but the game still goes on. Okay. But instead I go bishop g5, which is not bad, but he plays queen f7, and I was trying to figure out ways I could sacrifice the f2 pawn, but, you know, just play b4. But no, I don't think so. Like, he can take on f2, because of course if I take, well, firstly I just get checkmated at a bare minimum. But yeah, he could just take, and I'm like, why am I doing this? He's just gonna move his bishop back or something like that, and like, this is just not good. So I just play queen e2, guarding the pawn, guarding f2, keeping touch on c4, and life is pretty good. And he starts his major knight rotation. I just want to go back here before a3. I should not have played a3. a3 gives him the opportunity to reroute his knight to f5, as we'll see later in the game. I should have just simply centralized my rook from the corner, because I was like, ooh, if he gives me 2 more moves, I play b4 c5 and I trap his bishop. Like, that's a horrible plan. He is not going to allow me to do that. I do not have 2 more moves. I should have just played centralized my rook, and now if he goes knight c5 and I go knight c3, he has nowhere for his knight to go. His knight can't make any more progress in this position. But instead, I play a3, and now he plays knight c5. I don't want to trade. Trading might be okay, but I thought it would be too easy for him. Like, but maybe it's what I should do. Like, maybe I should just play, you know, b4 now, and, you know, and go for this endgame. Like, maybe this is what I should do. But instead I was like, no, I'm just gonna go knight c3, centralize my knight. But then he goes knight b3, knight d4, and knight f5. Like, I'm like, what did I just do? Like, his knight was the worst piece on the board on b8 and went to f5, which is absolutely insanity. That is absolutely insane. Like, this knight's journey, I mean, just, this knight went from g8 to f6 to d7 to b8 to a6 to c5 to b3 to d4 to f5. What? So a3, huge mistake by me, at least I think. I play b4, and he brings his queen into h5 and g4, so now he's really aggressively placed. I was thinking about playing bishop g3, but I was like, after knight takes, pawn takes, and c takes, I was like, I'm not really sure. Like, if I try to infiltrate his position, then he can take advantage of this pin, and he can just take on g3. I was like, this looks way too scary. Like, why am I doing this to myself? You know, I'm down 2 pawns at a minimum. I guess maybe I'm just down 1 pawn at a minimum, but it doesn't look that pleasant at all. I guess I'm still down 2 pawns, but it's just not pleasant. It's not pleasant at all. So I didn't want to put my bishop back to g3. That's why I rotated my knight back to e2 to defend my bishop, but now he can take on c4. If I take back on c4, he plays g5, because if I take, I lose my queen. I was like, dang, this guy's got tricks. You know, so I can't take on c4. So I decided to go queen d2. And one of the things I had to calculate was, after h6 and I move my knight to g3, what happens if he goes rook a d8, giving up the 2 rooks for the queen? And my conclusion was that, like, if this happens, and if I take his knight and he takes my bishop, I can go knight e7, and I'm threatening, let's say like g3, for example, I'm threatening to go rook h8 check and knight g6, winning his queen. Same thing if he takes my pawn on e5, I still have, or e4, e5, then I can still go rook h8 and knight g6. So I saw that I had that little trick, but the thing is, he's, you know, if I take, he just take back, you know, and I'm like, like my bishop's still bad. He still has his passed pawn. Am I really convinced by this position? Like, you know, like c3 and like c2 at a minimum, but I guess I win the pawn back if he does that. So I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing here? Like, but I decided that, like, you know, if he does go rook d8, I thought I had at least equal chances. I don't think I was worse. And also the alternative was bad. Like, after knight g3 and rook d8, like, what am I going to do? Rook c1? Or queen c1? And, like, if I don't go queen d2 in this position, I'm going to go queen c2? And then he's just going to infiltrate my position anyways. Like, I was like, this looks bad. This looks bad. So that's why I played queen d2, because I could play knight g3, and I wasn't afraid of rook d8. He takes my knight with his knight, and I take back, and so far, you know, who has been making progress in this position? Not me. Not me. I have made like zero progress in the position. I have managed to trade off knight for bishop, and this bishop, you know, it was supposed to be his worst piece. That is, you know, I'm threatening to trap, but now it's a beautiful piece attacking my position. And I was like, this is not good. This is not good. And more than that, we are low on time. We are both under 5 minutes per side, and this is the craziest time scramble portion. Like, we are just blitzing out moves. We gotta move, like, because we are both super low on time now, and it gets super, super stressful. He comes up with a neat idea, which is h5, you know, continuing the attack, and my bishop is pinned. This pawn is pinned to my king. So if I play h3, he can just take my bishop. So that's why I go king h8 here, and now if he goes h4, I'm gonna go h3 and give my bishop more breathing room. Maybe he should have played h4 here. I'm trying to think, because if I go h3, queen g6, bishop h2, I guess this pawn on f2 is not hanging yet, so maybe it's fine. So yeah, I guess maybe it's fine. But he plays rook f5, you know, attacking e5 one more time. Maybe go rook g5 and h4 to like try to open things up, pry things open on the king side. But now I go h3, kicking the queen back. I thought, hey, maybe a queen trade will benefit me. You know, a lot of pressure is off in this position. Maybe I can infiltrate, double up, force some more trades, and you know, I'm not scared of this pawn structure. In any endgame, these tripled isolanos aren't very scary to me. So I was, you know, so I'm not afraid of queen g5. I'm happy to see it. But he goes queen g6, keeping queens on, keeping the pressure on, and I go queen c2, pinning the rook to the queen here, and he doubles up rooks, trying to put maximum pressure on this f2 pawn, and I centralize my queen here, maintaining the pin, and he plays queen g5, I play h4, he goes back to e7, centralizing his queen somewhat, and now I decide to take on, I double up. Not double up, but I take on c6 later, but I first defend my f2 pawn. Because right now, it's undefended. And he couldn't take it earlier because his rook was pinned to the queen. But now, he unpins his queen from the rook. So now this pawn is actually hanging, so that's why I defend it. But now, he plays c3, trying to deflect my rook, but I just blockade the passed pawn. And now he plays rook d8, centralizing his rook, but I just take the pawn on c3, take the pawn on c6. He gets his rook into the position, but he plays rook g4. And if my rook wasn't on c3, wasn't on the third rank, then he would be threatening, like let's say queen b7, he would be threatening rook takes g3 and taking my rook on f1. But luckily, my rook on c3 is doing God's work here. And I was definitely worried in this position that like he might like sacrifice his rook to like take the pawn on h4, but luckily my rook always did a really good job of being able to go to h3, attacking the queen, and like suddenly I'm the one attacking him perhaps. So So yeah, it was never so easy for him. It was never so easy for him. But after I take the pawn on c6, he goes rook g4, you know, potentially cooking up some threats here. But now I play queen a8 check. He blocks with his rook. And, you know, this is move 38. We get an additional 30 minutes after the 40th move. So here, we've both been playing with under a minute for so long. And here, I played queen a8 out of a hallucination. Because I thought, at first I thought he had to go rook, king h7. But then I was like, okay, well, he can block with his rook. But if he blocks with his rook, I can just go queen e4. And I was like, wait a second. No, I can't. His rook is on g4, guarding e4. So that was just an hallucination. So I wasted a move. But honestly, it doesn't really matter. And he decides to go g5. And I take the pawn. He pushes the pawn. And we have made the 40th move. And we have additional time. So I really think it's hard for black to make progress. There is no way for black to make progress. White's position is solid enough to defend everything. Black's position is very active, but I think white's holding it together. But he tries to play aggressively with his g5 and h4 pawn push. And to be fair, my bishop is really bad. My bishop is really bad, but there's not much you can really do about it. If you try to take this f2 pawn, well, I'm just going to take, and after it takes, I could either play rook f3 maybe, or I could just take the pawn on c7, attacking the queen. Yeah, or I could take the pawn on on c7, attacking the queen. So he decides to take on g5 after some thought. And here I was very, very happy. Because, firstly, there are no threats against me because my queen guards g2. And I play rook f3. Because now if you take on g2, I'm just going to take the rook and I defend g2. And if you take, you know, I have no issues in this position. And I'm going to play queen f6 next to force a trade. And I'm just up a pawn at the end of the day. I am simply up a pawn. So this whole exchange with g5 and h4, like, I am just better now. I'm just better in this position. And I play rook f3. He goes rook g8. But now the rook no longer guards the f file. So now I can just take on e6. And after he takes on g2, I go f6 check, forcing a trade of queens. He decides to go king h7. If he does take my queen, I'm taking back with the rook. Actually, no, I'm taking back with the pawn, actually. Because his bishop cannot defend the promotion square, and if he defends with the rook, for example, then you know his rook on g2 hangs. So if he goes back here, I can go here, here, and check here, and I thought this was more winning. Yeah, I thought this was more winning than this. Maybe I can go rook here. No, maybe I'll go rook here. After takes, king here, check, king here maybe? Yeah, and this definitely looks better. I can maybe, oh wait, I can't play f4 yet. Maybe I go king g2 and try to play f4. Yeah, that's good. But also, I don't have to take with the pawn. I could also take with the rook too. And just maintain, like if he goes back here, for example, I go e6 and chess the blockade. I can go f4, attacking his rook, and you know f5, and like life is very good for me. Life is very good for me. So that's why he goes king h7 instead. And now I trade queens and I hallucinate once again. I thought the next sequence of 5 moves was winning for me. I foresaw all of this. Rook f7 check. The king goes up to attack the rook. I defend my rook with my pawn. He attacks my pawn. I go f4. He goes rook f5. I go rook g1, deflecting the king away from the rook, and I'm just up a rook, and I win the game. The small flaw in that plan was that after rook g1, he takes it with his bishop. This happened in the game. And then I realized the bishop saw g1. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Because now I'm going to lose a pawn. If I take the rook and go rook e1 after he takes, I thought, oh my gosh, my bishop sucks and his bishop is really good. I'm going to lose this game. I thought, you know, if I go king here, he goes king here, I go king here, he goes a6, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting zugzwanged. I can't move my bishop, I can't move my king, I can't move, you know, anything. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose this game. I legitimately thought like I was going to lose this game, but then he told me after the game, like, oh, you can just go, you know, after this, you can just go b5. And like here, here, here. I don't know if I should play, I don't know if I should get my king. Yeah, I think I should play b5 first, actually. Yeah, probably play b5 first. And then I kind of have to sit here. Wait, is this still losing? I thought, you know, he said after the game that this was not still losing. This looks very, very scary. Yeah, no. I think I have to bring my king over. I think I have to bring my king over. And after a6... here... Oh my gosh, wait. I think this is still losing. I'm gonna get zigzwanged. Oh, my king's gonna get forced back. He's gonna step in with the king. Wait, this is bad. This is bad. So, okay. Okay, my opponent thought that it was still drawing, but I'm actually not 100% sure. But if I knew that the bishop, if I was able to use my eyes to see the bishop guarding g1, I would not have played e6, rook f7 and e6. I would not have played that. I would not have played that. Instead, I might have done something like rook g1, for example, forcing at least one trade of rooks. If he takes, I take back, and now I have two passed pawns, and his king is cut off from defending them. That's my premise. If he attacks, I defend. If he attacks, I check, and I'm gonna win the other pawns. And like, I like my chances in this endgame. I like my chances in this endgame, definitely. So this endgame should be 100% winning. But instead, I hallucinate and think that his bishop doesn't guard g1 after I push my f pawn. And now, you know, I play bishop g1. And he takes and offers a draw, and I accept. Because after I take, he takes, I take, he takes, I'm just going to try to win this pawn. Like, you know, maybe he'll go here, maybe, and then like I'll go here, he goes here, I go here, he goes here, he goes here, maybe I go here, and like he goes here, and like maybe I'm even losing here actually, now that I'm looking at it. There's a good chance I might be losing here. Oh, yeah, I gotta be very careful. I have to be very careful in this rook endgame. Yeah, I have to be extremely careful in this rook endgame. And maybe even like rook f3 here, but then like rook e2. Yeah, wait, hold up. So take takes. Maybe I try to play actively. I go here. Yeah, because now if takes, he's going to be defending more passively. Yes. This is how I do it. This is how I draw it. I have to be very careful. But the point is, he takes the rook and offers a draw. Because I lost my advantage. And I accept it. Yeah, because I'm like, I screwed it up. Like, I only have losing chances here. But I guess I don't. I guess we have equal drawing chances here, I guess. I don't know. So that was very disappointing. I had two major hallucinations. I think, for me, the highlights were a3, that, you know, this pawn push. This pawn push, so bad. So bad. Not good. And I think I did well in the time scramble portion. Like, I did the best I possibly could. I'm disappointed at myself a little bit for the hallucination with Queen A8. Trying to go back to E4. Only mildly disappointed with myself in that one. It's a time scramble. But I was like, I cannot believe myself. I hallucinated pushing the F pawn and not being able, and seeing that not realizing the bishop guards G1. Like, that's such a dumb hallucination. I could have won. I could have won against a 2100, and I have like a 30% score against 2100s. Like, I have some draws, but I usually lose. So I'm very disappointed with myself in this game. I think I could have done a lot better, but it is what it is. But I'm going to go over Matthew O'Brien's National Masters, Matthew O'Brien's notes on this game. All right, he said, to me, this is a strange placement of the knight, but the bishop short on squares is short on squares, and we shall play against this piece. The bishop is short on squares. Knight e2, rook f5, knight f4, rook takes, knight d3, attacking both the bishop and the rook, rook e4, queen takes g7, queen takes, bishop takes, both bishops are hanging. So this is also a way to play. I'm attacking the rook. If rook e2, maybe, what do I play? I'll play rook c1 maybe. This is very interesting. I did not consider this. Well, I was still in opening theory, I guess. So, yeah, rook e4. And this is very interesting. I didn't consider this. But yeah, this bishop is loose on the square. So maybe I should have considered it. Rook a1. This says this looks most natural to me. Knight a6, knight e4, king h8. Yeah, bishop c1. Ah, yeah, the bishop gets out of the corner, and now you can retreat the bishop back to c1. Rook f5, queen g3. So now there's just a very complicated but interesting game. I can consider taking on c5. I probably won't, because or else the knight's going to get to the e4. So, but yeah, this is definitely very interesting. Queen b6, c4, king h8. He says, bishop f4. He said, perhaps this is the lesser evil objectively, but this is far too lame. We prefer to let pawns protect pawns and let our pieces do better things. Pieces should touch upon opponents' pieces, not so much of our own. So he said, like, bishop g5 is the more natural move that he would have played. Bishop f4, he said, maybe it's objectively better, but it's very lame. And that's a good point. Bishop f4 is pretty lame. It does stare into its own pawn. Bishop d4 also looks like a good option. Oh, I didn't even consider that. Bishop d c5. Oh. Knight c3. Bishop takes is interesting. And c6. Huh. That is very interesting. That's extremely interesting. Okay. So, yeah. And the game could progress like this. I mean, yeah, this is very interesting. Yeah, I didn't consider this. I guess even here, he could have gone bishop d4 and played c5. I guess that's what he could have gone for. And after a3, he said, yes, this is a mistake. We cannot follow up with b4. I believe it was less a case of calculation and more of a case of evaluation. Oh, okay. All right. He's saying, yeah. So he's saying this is more of me evaluating incorrectly. Okay. Interesting. Queen f7. He said rook a1. He said it looks pretty, but rook lifts are too slow. Whoa, h3 is not a move I would have considered. So bishop takes, king h1. Pin, so we're in that pin. Queen f5. Bishop e7. Queen takes, pawn takes. Rook f7. Bishop A3. The rook is pinned. King G8. Yeah, at a bare minimum, this is pretty interesting. King G8. King G8. Rook takes F2 is also a move that he noted. Queen takes, queen takes. It's interesting. Oh, it's a mistake, I guess. But it's an interesting move. Okay. Huh. Up a pawn, but it's not so clear. It looks okay to me. I guess the weird thing is the knight's on A6. So I think that's the weird part. Okay. E. Oh, that's a nice idea. Winning a pawn because after pawn takes, rook takes, but then actually after bishop takes, you have G4, and the rook, you're winning in exchange. That's nice. That's cute. I'd be more concerned with H3 though, or H6. But maybe you can just go rook here, or bishop here. Maybe you can go bishop here, I'm not sure. Okay. Knight C5. He gave it a question mark because it allows white to trade to dark squared bishops. Allows white to trade dark squared bishops? I don't understand. Knight takes, bishop takes, B4. He said, I'm happy to go into a better endgame. Bishop here, takes, takes. And he's saying that the endgame is better for white. Black has a structural weakness. This pawn on E5 isn't super weak because we can just defend it at worst case. So I just completely misevaluated that this endgame is just slightly better for us. For me, I guess. Wow. Okay, I completely misevaluated that. Our knight C3 was a mistake, according to him. Our knight has no forward squares. Pawn on D5 dominates the knight, and their knight will undoubtedly be superior on F5. I am of the school of annoying pieces have to die, and small problems should be taken care of so the larger ones will not manifest. So knight C3 was a huge mistake here. Okay. So he gave this an inaccuracy. He said this is not a very happy decision to take for black in some ways. Could be strong or weak pawn depending. Queen D2. Queen takes C4. Looks too risky. Knight H4. G3. D3. He said these are not my pawns. Knight takes. Knight D4. Bishop here. So he thinks this is pretty interesting. Whoa. If pawn takes, queen takes, king G1, rook F5. That's ridiculous. With rook A F8 coming next, this is probably crushing for black. That's crazy. That's crazy. Can't I just go queen D3? Oh my gosh. Ouch. Wow. Rook takes, queen takes, king H8. And now you won material back. Ouch. Wow, that's crazy. Alright. So yeah, it wants black. He thinks it might be a good idea to give back the pawn for black. But instead he plays H6. He said H5 looks better. Knight G3 takes H4 because Ben played H5 H4 anyways in the game, but now he does it with a tempo. So rook A8 is indeed tempting, but queen takes, rook takes. Wow. He says rook E1. He says, I do not see a need to rush to exchange rooks. Now E6 plan looks good. The rook is well placed here on E1, so no need to calculate. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't really consider. I mean, it makes sense. You're putting a rook behind a passed pawn, but Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I thought maybe we could counterplay because e6. Oh, but then if he takes, I can just trade and e7. Oh wait, no, he can take the. Yeah, I have to play rook here first, and let's say bishop d4, for example, here, and then after rook here, I can take. Yeah, this does look very good for me. Okay, yeah, good points. Good points. King g6, e6. Rook d7. Yeah, rook d7 was better. Maybe. f4. Okay, so we went through that. I'm going to hit the game review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.